All right. Good morning to everyone. Before we get started, let me make sure I'm good with all the platforms. Over here on LinkedIn right now, checking LinkedIn. What up, LinkedIn? If you're tuning in from LinkedIn, good morning for you. Good morning. I usually go live on just three platforms, my three major ones, which is YouTube, LinkedIn, and LinkedIn, and Facebook is usually where I go live every Monday, Wednesday. I'm checking LinkedIn now. Make sure we're good. LinkedIn, what's up? What's up? Good morning. All right, LinkedIn, we're good. Let me actually make sure I repost it. Now, let's get it. LinkedIn, we up. LinkedIn, we good. All right, let me make sure I'm good over there on... I'm checking LinkedIn now. All right, good. So LinkedIn, we're good. Let me check Facebook real quick. Yeah, Facebook. Good morning to you all. Happy Friday. Facebook real quick. All right, Facebook is good. All right. And now I'm checking YouTube. 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 All right. Oh, whoops. I mean to do that. Let's go. All right, we're on YouTube. Hold on, let's get through the ad real quick.
And I'd like to speak to you today about an important issue: car safety for our pets. These are my...
Do the ad real quick. All right, cool. All right, good. So we're good on all the platforms. All the platforms were straight. Welcome. All right, welcome. Another episode. Tackling turnover with teamwork. I'm your host, Aswan Crookshank, your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, former Division I college football player, and current 5-time published author and educator. What I've created since I graduated over the past couple of years, since I've wrote my books, I've created a whole brand, a whole framework, a whole mindset, a whole philosophy in which we're taking the lessons from the football field, more in particular the teamwork lessons from the football field, and applying it to businesses, applying it to business owners, so they have teams, they have members of their staff that are coming to work every day motivated, and they're working in a cohesive unit, and everyone's getting better every day. There's actual measurables attached to every single person. That's what I've been able to take from the football world and apply it to business, and a whole brand, a whole frame, a whole philosophy that I call Move Swiftly. All right, Move Swift plus LY. All right, Swift plus LY. That's where you see the logo there. It is plus LY. That's what we do over here in the Move Swiftly world. So today, because tomorrow is one of my favorites, so coordinates. All right, if you noticed already, got the Michigan hat. I'm a huge college football man. Over the years, since I've been through playing, I've been really gravitated more so to the college game, seeing that I was a part of it. I've been involved with it and the loyalty of it, and when it comes to my business, the way my business works. Now, I'm a diehard Redskins fan. I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland. I grew up a diehard Washington Redskins fan. That's been, my team since I was young. But as I've gotten older and I've learned the business side of it, the coaching side of it, the organizational side of how these football programs and how sports programs come together in general, my interest is more so in the college game. It was in the college game even when I was playing, but more so I've been more attentive toward what goes on in the college football world now that I know the backstory and now that I know the business. So tomorrow, recording this, we're doing this live December 6th, 2024. And tomorrow is one of the most sought after, one of those days in college football that every person who really loves the sport of college football looks forward to. It's one of those days where you're like, all right, here is where the rubber meets the road. Now, last week was great. I'm not taking anything away from last week. Rivalry week, we saw a lot of rival teams, saw a lot of, dust-ups between coaches and people going after it. With a lot of things where a lot of questions were somewhat answered last week in terms of who was for real, who was a contender, who was a pretender. A lot of that stuff was talked about or was seen last week in rivalry week. But there's nothing like this championship week, man. It's nothing like this championship week, dog, because we have a new playoff format and there's new things coming up, and you got to show up, man. I don't care what you did in the regular season. This championship week, it starts off. This is where your legacy is born. Give a damn about what you did in the regular season with your Heisman, your individual accolades, and all that. It's about who is about that life. Who's about that life, right? So, recording this on a Friday, and tomorrow there's it's a bunch of conference championship games tomorrow that I will be tuning into. More than likely, that's what Monday's show is going to be all about, me reacting to what I saw in these college football playoffs and all that kind of stuff. So today I have to tell you, I have to go back because I've never actually done an episode like this because I just got these back for a while. My nephew, I went home for Thanksgiving. My nephew been keeping them right here in this little case, all my college championship rings from Stony Brook to Carson Newman. I got 2 at Stony Brook and 1 at Carson Newman. So I played for 2 programs, and I was blessed enough to be on teams that were able to get rings for the conference championships that we won. So I remember I was in Maryland for Thanksgiving, and my nephew kept them in this nice little case here. So I told him, look, I need those back because I'm going to do an episode about how I got all 3 of them and what the situation was for me to actually be able to now, as a 36-year-old man, look back on these rings and think about my teammates and think about my coaches and think about all the things that I personally had to live through just to be on these teams. Understand, I got in the game maybe for 5 plays. All right, 5 plays, but these rings mean just as much to me as it would mean to anybody that was a starter, that was a significant contributor to the team, because of everything that I lived through to get on the field. All right, to get on the field from, coming from a Division II program to having an ACL injury to being in the working world and really not being recruited. Like, so many things we got to get into today in terms of me covering why this means so much. These 3 mean so much to me, and just how important the team is. The team. This is why a reason that I've been such a huge Michigan fan for virtually my entire life is because it has always been about the team. Yes, we have Charles Woodson as a Heisman, but even with Charles Woodson, it's always about the team. Such a huge fan of the team. The whole business, everything I'm about is about the team. All right. So before we get into that, let me get through a few announcements here real quick. First and foremost, we are back tomorrow morning. Free boxing lessons. Anybody that is in the West Palm Beach area, if you are interested in free boxing lessons, will be out at Okalele Park. Just message me and I'll send you over the details. Every 2 weeks, we're going to be doing that tomorrow, and then the next 2 weeks after. It's going to be exciting. Again, if you are interested in doing that, hit the QR code right there, and I'll get you squared away. Next thing, business owners, freeguide.makeyourmove.com. It's freeguide.makeyourmove.com. I've created 10 steps, 10 strategies that you could implement right now that'll lead to less turnover in your business, that'll make it so you have actual actionable steps and things that you have your people doing. That's the most important thing. Again, I've been a part of several businesses that are no longer in business. I've worked with a ton of different business owners. I've seen this mistake happen over and over again. The reason most businesses go under is because you're not allowing your staff to have measurables, attainable measurables every single day. And you're not pushing them to make sure that they're reaching these measurables every day. A measurable can be something as simple as memorizing a mission statement, or making a phone call, or coming up with a new way to bring in money, meeting someone, setting up an event. you need to have measurables in your business, and you need to have people who are coming in and they know what these measurables are. And I'm going to get to this probably in a later episode tomorrow. But yesterday, we actually I teach at the school named the Center for Creative Education, and I got a chance. We had an opportunity to see Tommy Hilfiger. Tommy Hilfiger was here at the school. Yes, that Tommy Hilfiger with the red, white, and blue flag, the one you know about. He was here, and it was such a beautiful thing because we had the kids interview Tommy Hilfiger, who as a company, again, I believe the number was $10 billion. He does $10 billion in sales. And you have these kids from this West Palm Beach area interviewing a billionaire, right? So, and they did a fantastic job, All right. They both did. All three of them happened to be in the class that I teach. So I was ready to burst with pride when watching them. And one of them actually does watch these videos when he gets a chance and all that. But, it was so cool because what Tommy Hilfiger made sure he mentioned the importance of staying innovative and to be hungry. You're talking about a guy, again, $10 billion in sales. And out of his own mouth, he says, I still feel like I'm just getting started. I still feel like I got to chase that Ralph Lauren guy who got the horse and, doing his thing and all of that. And that's really the mentality. And that's what you want from all of your employees. All right. So again, freeguide.makeitmove.com. Make sure you get that. Final thing, patreon.com/as144. That is the exclusive community for business owners who really do want to get better. I've created a Patreon link for all of you all. You can join at the preseason level or the regular season level, the postseason level. I'd be happy to discuss the difference between all three of them in a later time. Just message me for more information on that. All right, here we go. Today's topic. Let me put it up real quick. Championship college experience. Now, before I get to my particular experience, I got to address the current event. But the current event right now is there's been some debate on the current college football playoffs. I'm putting up this bracket because that is the current. This is before, again, I'm recording this the day before the conference championship games. And right now, as it stands, this is the new format of the 12-team playoffs. All right, we have Oregon number 1, Texas number 2, SMU number 3, Boise State at number 4, which I'm gonna dive into that in a second. Then we have Penn State number 5. Now, keep in mind, Penn State and Oregon are playing tomorrow for the Big Ten championship. You have Notre Dame number 6. You have Georgia number 7, who I've been on record saying that I believe Georgia is going to be the national champions this year. You have Ohio State number 8, Tennessee number 9, and it was Tennessee 9, Indiana 10, Alabama 11, and then Arizona State 12. So I'll just say it now. I don't have an issue with it. I don't have no issue at all with the 12-team playoffs and how it turned out. All right. Now, granted, a little biased. You see, I'm a Michigan fan, and when I'm not rooting for Michigan, I'm actually rooting for Florida State. And neither one of them teams, I don't have a horse in the race this year. Both of those teams last year went undefeated this time of year, and again, that's just kind of the way it works. Everybody has to eat it, right? But in regards to the argument that I've been hearing in terms of how the 12-team playoff system is not really bringing out the best, or it's not fair, because most of the people who are arguing against it, they're basically saying that this Boise State thing is ridiculous, that SMU, because they play in a weaker conference like the ACC, they don't deserve to be in it. And it could very well happen that Clemson goes and beats SMU tomorrow, and then that knocks them out the playoffs. And then you have a couple teams like Arizona State, who, again, they can lose this week. I can't remember who they're playing in the Pac-12, but then you have this Boise State that gets a first-round bye. So, yes, I can see the argument from some people who may think, okay, you get inferior teams that don't play in strong conferences and all that kind of stuff, and they're in, and you get teams like Alabama, Ohio State, Tennessee, Penn State, Indiana, Georgia, teams that play for Power 4 conferences are playing for conferences that are known, and they have losses on their resume, 2 losses on their resume, whatever it is, and they're still in. How they're saying, oh, well, they shouldn't be in. Like, I've heard some people make the argument that Ohio State shouldn't be in, and that Alabama shouldn't be in, and Notre Dame shouldn't be in, which I disagree with. I think that this particular system is so much better than a 4-team playoff system. I was an advocate maybe for 6 or 8 teams, maybe 12 might be overdoing it, but I think it's better to have it like this, particularly because of what happened last year. Again, a diehard Michigan fan, but my ideal situation would I would have loved to see Florida State and Michigan get into the playoffs, and Michigan goes. Michigan did go undefeated, but Florida State also went undefeated. However, because they were playing in a weaker conference and they lost their quarterback, the committee said, "Oh, well, Alabama's the better team," and they go and put Alabama in, and they kick Georgia completely out. When that happened last year, I knew at that point you have to go to more teams. There's no way it can only work with 4 teams because both Georgia and Florida State deserve to be in the college football playoffs last year. All right. Now, as someone who was paying attention to the situation, I was kind of some of the fan in me was rooting for Florida State, and I felt a little bad for Florida State until they go in the Orange Bowl and they get their ass kicked by Georgia, completely debunking this myth and making it seem like the SEC invented football and everything that you tried to do with more playoff teams. Basically, the reason that this whole playoff system started was because the SEC was winning too many championships. There was a period there where it was LSU. I think it started when LSU played Alabama twice that year, and it was simply the only game to watch. Then for years, it was Georgia and Alabama playing against each other. So it seemed like every single year, the national championship was going to an SEC school, right? So last year, what happened when both Georgia and Florida State had legitimate arguments towards being in the playoffs, they both compete against each other. Georgia wipes the floor with Florida State. I mean, the score was something like 70. It was close to 63-7. I mean, just beat that ass. That did nothing. Did nothing when it comes to this argument that I myself have participated in, and the argument that the SEC doesn't deserve to have a certain amount of teams, or the SEC isn't the premier conference and all that kind of stuff. So when it comes to the way this is set up and the reason I like this setup so much is because talking stops. The talking stops. So if you're Ohio State, right? If you're Ohio State and you have been basically told by SEC folks, or basically have been looked at as a team that got in off luck because the Big Ten is so weak or whatever, and if you're Ohio State and you're upset about what folks are saying about the fact that you got in only because of your brand and only because you're Ohio State, you have an opportunity now to prove it. You have an opportunity to go play an SEC school, kick their ass, beat their ass, and we can all see the arguments and the back and forth, the constant back and forth about which playoff team or which conference is the best conference and all that. All that could be null and void because we got to play. That's the beautiful thing about a playoff system, right? And that's the beautiful thing about having more teams in a playoff system. It's all out. However you want to get it, we can get it. All out. However you want to get it, we can get it. It's all right. Now you got Indiana, who a lot of people say, all right, they don't deserve to be in because they had a weaker schedule. They go up against Georgia, and we'll see what happens, right? You get a Notre Dame. Go up against an Alabama. You get a Penn State who goes up, or a Big 12 team like Arizona State. It goes up against a Big Ten team, and it's whoever wins the game. Now, the one thing, the people who are critical about this playoffs, the one thing I will say is this Boise State thing here, this Boise State having a first-round bye and all that, that part I agree with. There needs to be something in place in which a team like Boise State doesn't get a first, because we know they don't play nobody. I know they played Oregon earlier. I think that was their only loss, but Boise State having a first-round bye really isn't that there's something really missing when it comes to that. However, at the same time, it's a playoff system. Just because they get a first round bye does not mean that they're going to win anything. Does it? It does not mean that they're going to win anything. So let's say it stays the way it is. Let's say Oregon wins tomorrow and it stays the way it is. Penn State goes on. They play Arizona State. They have to still beat Penn State. Boise State would have to beat Penn State or Arizona State. So it's not like it's that big of a deal just because Boise State gets a first round bye. It's not like it's a big deal because they still have to win the game. And that's what football is all about. That's what it's all about. All out, however you want to get it, we can get it. So I like this system a whole lot more. One, because it's a whole lot more football for me to watch and a lot more content for me to create, a lot more lessons that I could be taking from the game and applying to you business owners and all that. And two, it's just fair. It's, again, if you're Ohio State and you feel like you're being disrespected at the fact that they let you in, then because again you're not in the big almighty SEC and you quote unquote play weaker teams, then go out and kick some Tennessee ass and see what goes down. And that's the same thing. I would just say the same thing when it comes to Notre Dame and Indiana and a lot of these teams that are sort of being punished by the public opinion because they're not competing in the SEC. Now all of a sudden it's almost like just because you're not in the SEC, you don't know how to play football no more. That's ridiculous. And same holds true with ACC and all these other conferences that are not the SEC. And that's the thing that I want to make sure I explain to you folks is that just because you're not in the SEC doesn't mean you don't know how to play football. We need the Dan and me may be talking a little bit here, but it's important that you start proving that narrative wrong. Last year, who was the national champions? What conference? Big Ten. Straight up. And we had to beat an SEC team to get there. Granted, hey, it was a win. It was a nail biter in that Rose Bowl, but at the end of the day, we went through an SEC team to get to the national championship, and we won it. The SEC champion at the time, which was Alabama. All right, and that's just my take on it. I'm probably we'll see how tomorrow plays out, and everything is set, and all the bowl games are set, and all that. We'll see how tomorrow plays out, and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, man, look, you got to play the damn game. You got to play the game. So all the back and forth and the debating on who got it right and who didn't get it right and all that, the reason it has gone to 12 teams is to see who going to play the game, because we're going to play the game and we can see it's all out. However you want to get it, we can go get it. All right. So as far as today's topic is concerned, my championship college experience. Today, I will be talking to you guys about the 4 years that I spent in college. I spent 4 years in undergrad, and I was on the first 3 years I was on 3 different campuses in 3 different states. All right, graduated in 4 years, and I ended with all 3 of these. All right, all 3 of these rings. And again, I look at these rings, see my name on it, and there's so many memories that rush back. All right, so today I'm going to walk you through some of the biggest lessons that I learned from each one of those 3 seasons, how they came about, and what college is supposed to be about, in particular, what college athletics is all about. I'm not just going to put this into a football thing, because one of the things that I learned when I graduated from college, and I spent a good deal amount of time being a recruiter, like a college scout, and I would go work with families, kind of being that third party agent type of a guy to go help the young men find schools and all that kind of stuff. One of the things I remember having conversations with the parents about was, hey, it's about the experience. It is, listen, we want you to get your piece of paper. I'm not telling you not to get your degree. I'm not at all diminishing the importance of how important it is to actually go and get that piece of paper. However, it is so important that you understand that the experience that you have in those 4 years is going to be huge. It's going to be vital for what you do when life challenges start coming up at you. In fact, I remember having a former teammate on the show. Shout out to Danny Parker, who's now a neighbor of mine over here in West Palm Beach. He went to the same high school I went to, but he graduated from Duke. And if I'm not mistaken, I think his coach was Coach Cutliff. If I'm not mistaken, you might have to Danny, if you're listening, you might have to fact check me on that. But I remember he was on this very show, on this live, when we were doing some NIL. We were doing a live stream, calling it NIL. That's back when I was like doing a lot of NIL stuff or whatever it is. But I had him on because I wanted his perspective on, the college game and playing in the ACC and Duke and all that. Again, one of the most prestigious universities in the world. And he was telling a story about how his college coach once told the guys, hey, look, guys, you're going to wake up one morning Your baby's going to be crying. Your wife is going to be mad at you. She might be sick with a cold or so. Hopefully nothing too crazy, but she's not going to be feeling well. Your baby's going to be crying. You're going to be hungry. You ain't even brushing. You ain't going to have your coffee. Nothing, like all sorts of things are going to be going on one morning. And then he looked in the camera. He goes, and you just got to figure it out. Just got to figure it out, dog. So when it comes to the college experience, it needs to be prepping you for that moment. When you wake up one morning, your baby's crying, wife's mad at you, she's sick, she's on her period, or she may be pregnant again. You don't got nobody to cook for you. You got to figure out how you're gonna get to work. There's some bills that are mounting up. There's this happening. There's life. Oh man, I gotta stop and get some gas. Oh man, there's something wrong with the car. I gotta take it in. There's a flat. All sorts of things gonna be going on. College is supposed to prepare you for how you handle that moment, because those moments are the most challenging moments. And if you're not ready for it, it will break you. That's why I'm such an advocate for college sports, in particular college football, because the biggest transition from high school to college is the fact that you are being filmed every single day. Every single move you make, regardless if you have pads on or not, everything is being evaluated. All right. So when it came to this first one, all right, get a good look at it. Carson Newman College. Yeah, how cool is that, huh? 10-1. Boom. Crookshank. Yeah, I redshirted this year. All right, I redshirted this year, and I'll never forget the practice or just throughout the season, because it was like anybody who redshirts their first year of college football. It's tough. It's tough to adjust to what you just been through. You were just king of whatever high school you came from. Most likely you were well known as an athlete, and now you're there. You're just kind of on the roster. You're not really contributing. It's a completely different feeling. And I remember having this. So the high school I went to was also the same feeling my freshman year. Really challenging. Didn't know where I fit in. It was tough to really find my way. And eventually it got better at the high school I attended, which is Good Counsel High School, right? So I attended there, and the reason I was trying to avoid transferring when I got to Carson Newman, I signed with Carson Newman after my freshman year of high school. And the reason I would always avoid the transfer talks, I didn't want to engage in transferring and all that. And, there were several of my teammates, my classmates, who were already talking about transferring before the season even started. They were really just not feeling East Jefferson City, Tennessee, and all that kind of stuff. I avoided that for as long as I possibly could. And then it's a current coworker of mine, shout out to Anthony if you listen, who's from the West Palm Beach area, from West Palm Beach. And he had said something during a practice. He said, because they were talking about transferring and all that. And I was just kind of listening, and I wasn't engaging in the conversation. But Anthony said something about how if we were all to transfer to FAMU, Florida A&M agriculture, to HBCU out here in Tallahassee. But he goes, look, if we were to transfer to FAMU, Florida State would be like Walmart. Now, when he said that, my ears opened up, my antennas opened up. I mean, everything just perked up, because that was the one thing we did for fun at Carson Newman was we'd go to this super Walmart. I swear to God, that was the only thing that we did for fun at Carson Newman College. There was nothing else to do in East Jefferson City, Tennessee, than just go to Walmart. So when he said that, my interest in transferring became huge, because what he said, look, we're at FAMU, Florida State would be like Walmart. Like again, that's my second team. I'm a Michigan fan, but I like to see Florida State do well. If I can go to a FAMU in Tallahassee and be at Florida State chilling, partying with it, like when he said that, and then in all honesty, it kind of dictated when I grew up, and I was like, man, do I see myself wanting to live? Him saying that allowed me to kind of really, Florida was a place that I was drawn to. And Anthony's been on the show too, by the way. The title of his episode, we did an episode about 2 years ago now. It's titled High School Football in Florida. I definitely recommend you guys go and tune into the full hour where he broke down the typical experience for a high school football player in Florida, which was very insightful, very, very enlightening for me, someone that grew up in particularly a basketball state, right? So anyway, from that point, I met Carson Newman College, and I was considering transferring when Anthony made those statements. However, me being a guy that was very realistic about where I could play because of the high school I played for. I knew that I wasn't going to be playing for Michigan. I knew I wasn't going to be going and trying to be unrealistic and got to transfer and play for Alabama or anything like that. I knew the school that I could possibly play at. Number one, I wanted to be a Division I program. If I was going to do it, I wanted to be a Division I program. And I thought to myself, the closest program that I was about to sign with out of high school was Stony Brook University. Stony Brook University at that time was just catching its stride as an FCS program. At the time, there was a program named Hofstra University that was kind of the premier FCS program in Long Island. And I wanted to go there, but they didn't want me. My grades and, I guess my ability on the field weren't matching up. But Stony Brook was willing to take me as a preferred walk-on or give me a partial. They really wanted to see more of me. And they gave me a proper evaluation. And it was really the only opportunity I had to go play D1. And that's, when you're playing football in high school, that's one of the things that you always want to do. It sticks up in you. So I was so close to being at Stony Brook out of high school, but at the 11th hour, my grades just weren't good enough to take the risk and stuff like that. So it was something that it was kind of an empty feeling of me wanting to go play Division I ball. And when I met Anthony, when I met a lot of the guys that I met at Carson Newman, it was a lot of similar. The stories were very similar. So I called Coach Golf, who was at the time he was the recruiting. He basically recruited Maryland from Stony Brook, and we got in touch, and he made sure I got my release papers and all that kind of stuff. This was years before the transfer portal, guys. So this was me having to go through protocol. I was going to have to sit out a year. I wasn't going to be able, all sorts of things come up. NCAA rules come up when you had to transfer, at least back in the days that I played, right? So anyway, I was doing all that during my freshman year, during that fall of my freshman year. The team, Carson Newman, was having a decent year. Again, we're in the middle of a 10-1 season. The only loss we had was, I believe it was to Catawba or something. It was literally one loss that kept us out of the playoffs, which was ridiculous in itself. But we still ended up winning the conference. And I'll never forget towards the fall, I think it was the fall that they did their banquet. Yeah, because I remember Anthony's. There were several people that came in with me, that class of 07. That class of 07, they came in with me that would talk about transferring all the time. I mean, just every conversation you could think of, talking about transfer. We want to leave Carson Newman. We're tired of East Jefferson City, Tennessee. All sorts of things, just constant. It was constant dialogue, right? So Coach Sparks, the late Coach Sparks, was at the time, he was the head coach. He pretty much built Carson Newman football. Just a fantastic human being he was. Anyone that has ever had the opportunity to be around Coach Sparks for a significant period of time will tell you the same thing. An absolutely fantastic human being. He made this announcement in the fall, like before we went home for Christmas break. During, I think it was like a banquet or something where he got the team together, kind of like the final wrap up. And he announced it there. He announced it at the banquet where everybody who was there during the fall and played was still there. He announced it that we will be getting championship rings. He said, you guys make sure you go see so-and-so and get your rings, get your finger fitted, because we're going to be getting one of these. We're going to be getting one of these rings. And everyone who was talking about transferring that freshman year, everyone kind of just looked at each other like, hold up, we might have to stay. We might have to stay to get one of these this spring, because, when we came back there in the spring, we were going to, I think that's when the banquet was and the rings were going to be ready. So that's when, we got them when we came back that spring semester. And so what happened was, the plan for me wasn't to actually go back the spring semester. It really wasn't. At this point, I wanted to get to Stony Brook. I had already asked Coach Sparks for my release papers, and I sent them over, and, I was ready to, go after the Stony Brook opportunity. But I didn't get in that spring semester at Stony Brook, and I had to go back to Carson Newman, and I was able to, take part in, who knows? Again, this is something that's normal as a freshman in college, 18-year-old freshman in college. The school may grow on you, and, opportunities come up, people leave, all that kind of stuff. So I was fairly optimistic when I came back that that second semester of my freshman year in college, right? So here's what happened, and here's where the story gets crazy. Here's where the story gets to the point where now everything I was telling you before about challenges and everything I was telling you before about how do you respond to challenges, how do you get yourself back up, and unfortunate things happen in life, and this happens in life. All sorts of things can happen, right? Because I get back to Carson Newman that spring semester, and they pick. So basically the way college football works is they have something called winter workouts, and in these winter workouts, a lot of teams actually do this, because I remember doing this at Stony Brook when I finally did get to Stony Brook, was they split the guys up into several teams, and these teams have certain competitions, like who can flip tires down the field the fastest, who's going to win in tug of war, and they have all sorts of games that they do, winter workouts. This is kind of the way the college winter workouts work. So I remember they were putting everybody together in teams for the winter workouts at Carson Newman, and I'm talking about the first day of winter workouts, the very first day. And I remember getting a motivational speech from, I think it was Dino, who last time I checked, Dino is I think he's a safeties coach at Liberty. I know he's coaching in college somewhere. But so he picked Jamie Brian. Yeah, so he picked me for his team group or whatever. And the first day of winter workouts, I'm talking about the first day of winter workouts, when I got back to Carson Newman that January, is when it happened. And I tore my ACL. I'll never forget it. It's me going against a kicker. So we're basically running. I'll show you. So it's me. The competition is here, right? So me on one side and the kicker on the other side, and we're hopping on one foot. Damn 40 yards down the field. Hopping on one foot 40 yards down the field. I'm about to beat him, and then before I know it, the next thing I knew, my ACL goes. Tear my ACL. It's right here. I'll show you guys the scars right there. See it? Let's look at it. Look a little closer. Let me show you. See that? See that scar right there? Yep. I show kids that all the time. When they talk about how they're going to be playing in the league, and, I got football and I don't need to focus on my studies. I'm good. I'm nice on the field like that. I show them that scar all the time, because that scar made it so I had to sit. I was out of football for the entire year. My entire sophomore year, I was out of football. Not only, think about what I was telling you before. I had already gotten my release. I already told him I wanted to transfer. I didn't want to be at Carson Newman, right? I basically was telling them I wanted to be at a different school. And boom, there goes tearing ACL. And now my recovery and how fast I recover from the surgery and all that kind of stuff, it's not something that I'm looking at it now. If I'm the coach of this player, it's not something that I necessarily need to make a priority. Not to say that Coach Sparks and the Carson Newman staff didn't care about me, but it was like, look, we got to focus on the guys that want to be here. We got to focus on the guys that didn't ask for the release papers or isn't looking around at other schools and all that kind of stuff. And, it was basically just me left to say, hey, do you want to continue to do this? Do you want to continue to do this or not? And I had to face that decision. So that happened, and I'll never forget when we actually got the ring. We got the ring that day, because when it was given to us, the Coach Sparks asked us to, before we opened it, he said, go to any adult in the room that you may feel comfortable with, or that you may, because he knows it's a Division II program and there's a lot of turnover. There's a lot of people coming in and out, whether they're transferring down from D1 to D2 or high school guys that are looking for a different shot, or junior college guys. It's a lot of things going on when it comes to a program like Carson Newman that takes in so many guys and allows the opportunity for a lot of people to play and all that kind of stuff. So, I went to my linebacker coach at the time. Now he's no longer with us, the late Carl Torbush, who got to know really well that freshman year, and I learned so much about the game of football. If you go look up the name Carl Torbush and what he's all about, he's someone that, again, he's the late, he passed away, I want to say maybe a couple of years ago. I actually wrote about him. I wrote about him in this book, not only this book, but I also wrote about him. I wrote about him twice, because his part of his story my introduction to football. This is it. I got it right here. Carl Torbush. Yeah, Carl Torbush. Yeah, so that was my linebacker. So these are my guys over here, by the way. And let me show you. Yeah, those are my guys at Carson Newman. Shout out to Beast Move and T-Bird. Keeping up with you guys on social and all that. But Coach Torbush was my linebackers coach. And when we got the ring, I asked him to pray for me as we were moving on to different lives, and things were just going to be changing. So remember him, shaking my hand, praying for me, and just saying, look, I know he's been through a lot. I know he's missing home, and then he goes and tears his ACL. He had an opportunity to play, and things change. So he wished me well, and that was the kind of the last interaction that I actually had with him. And next thing I know, a couple of years later, he passes away. So that's where, that's where stuff like this means something, and even though I never actually got on the field, I'm giving you an inside scoop and an understanding of how special it is to just be a part of a team, and all the things that come with being a team, because you just never know how things are going to turn out after that football season. All right. So that happened my sophomore year. Again, I can't play football. My ACL's torn. I just have knee surgery. So what I had to do is I moved back home to Maryland, and I had to go and get a job. This is just regular life, real world stuff where I no longer have the game as a player. It's the first time I'm not playing for a team since I was 7 years, since I was in third grade. So I was playing every year until that point. And as you guys know, or regular listeners know, these programs that I was playing for were serious programs. In fact, it was that year in 2008 was the first time that Good Counsel, which is my alma mater, Good Counsel played the Matha on ESPN. They're regulars on ESPN now, but this year was the first time that they were on ESPN, and this was the year that I couldn't play because my ACL was torn. And I remember having the star of that whole thing was a guy named Jelani Jenkins. I remember having Jelani on the show on my podcast when I first started, and I told him, if it wasn't for you, if it wasn't for watching you on national TV, I could have very easily packed it in and said, look, I ain't going back and playing at Stony Brook. But because I saw him out there doing him and then signing to Florida and all that, I'm like, hell no, dog. I got to go out there and play, because that was my guy. Jelani was my guy. Shout out to Jelani if you're listening, man. See you doing some big things as well. So that year I worked at a gym, luckily, and this is why teamwork and having teammates is so valuable to me, because that sophomore year, I got a job at a gym because of a former teammate. I had a former teammate. His name is Surly Monzi, who was working at this gym named Washington Sports Club. And he pretty much just hooked me up with a job at Washington Sports Club. This Washington Sports Club is Washington Sports Club is no longer in business. It was a health club. It's a gym, basically a gym, right? And even though I was only making $7 an hour working at this gym, it was the ideal spot for me. I got a place to rehab my knee. Not only did I rehab my knee there, but luckily my sister worked at a physical therapist office in which I was rehabbing my knee there as well. I got an opportunity to meet trainers. Shout out to Omar. I still work with Omar to this day, stay in contact with him to this day. And these were guys and Omar, by the way, is actually from Detroit. So, I'm a Michigan fan, so it was cool meeting him. It was kind of surreal. Who's UF, who could tell me all about what it takes to, we always get some friendly banter in there in terms of, who has the better football, Maryland or Michigan and all that kind of stuff. And I couldn't disagree too much because I'm obviously a Michigan fan. But I got an opportunity to work with him, and he was trying out work. When I say work with him, I mean work out with him. He was trying out to go play in the NFL. He played some years in the arena ball. Again, I'm working there, and I'm able to rehab my knee, and I'm working with these people that are trained for this and are going through the same thing, right? So ultimately what happened was I started working, and then I got my grades right. I went enrolled in a community college, got my grades right. And me and my mother drove to Stony Brook. We drove to Stony Brook the year like that off season, got an opportunity to see the campus, meet Coach Golf, and say, all right, I'm willing to do whatever it is I have to do, get in on my own merit. I got into Stony Brook off academics alone, just off my academics. And then I walked on to the football team. All right. So here's what happened when I got there. Yes, it was very rewarding to read that acceptance letter because, previous 2 years from high school, I tried to get in there. And then after college, after my freshman year in college, it was difficult couldn't get in. So yes, it was incredibly rewarding to actually get into the school. So that in itself, but now comes the next challenge, which is actually getting on the field and contributing and playing. All right. So here's what happened. Like I mentioned earlier in today's video, all right, it was years. This was years before what we now know is the transfer portal. All right. So when I transferred from a Division II program to a Division I program, even though I redshirted, and again, this was news that even Coach P, who was the head coach at Stony Brook, this was the first year that he hasn't been the head coach at Stony Brook. Even Coach P didn't know about this rule. He didn't know that when a person transfers from a D2 program, then goes transfer to a JUCO and then back to a 4-year Division I program, this person now is not eligible. This player is not eligible to play in any games. We found that out. He told me that during the summer when I was already accepted into the school and I was I was focused on going to the school. He found that out during that time. And then he realized, because I guess they have to go through compliance and make sure I wasn't even allowed to work out with the team until camp actually started. Like, I didn't even know if I was going to be invited to camp until the day before camp. Was in Maryland, swear to God. I remember being in Maryland and getting a call like the day before camp from Coach Golf. It's like, hey, yeah, by the way, so Coach B wants to invite you to camp, because you got to think I wasn't eligible to play in any games. And this wasn't Division II Carson Newman. This was now Division I FCS Stony Brook University, where they're actually paying guys and they have guys on full scholarship. So you can't have just anybody out there running around. You have to actually have there needs to be some legitimate process. And if me being a person that wasn't even eligible to play in any games, Coach P had to make the decision to say, hey, is it even worth having this guy in camp? So I knew that going in. And I remember actually being in New York Stony Brook's in Long Island, New York, by the way. So I remember being in New York, and I remember going to Coach Golf's office. Now, at this point, look, I know I'm not playing in the NFL. At this point, I'm a sophomore in college. I know I've done 2 years in college, so I'm getting ready to start my junior year in college. I've matured from when I was a freshman. So I went to Coach Golf during that time, and Coach Golf, again, he's been my position coach, and I could bring him on and he'll tell you this entire story. All right. This is not me bullshit. There's a lot of stuff that came, and why when I look at these rings here, it means so much to me. It means so much to me that you would not even know. Right. So I go to him before the season and I say, hey, Coach Golf, if there's anything you need me doing, when it comes to helping out with drills or, coaching or doing anything like that, let me know, because you got to think, when I tore my ACL at Carson Newman, they had me filming practices. They had me doing things that were kind of on the coaching side. And I started to see what my career was going to be after I was done playing. So I asked him to do something like that. And he was like, yeah, by all means, if we're not going to invite you to camp, then you're welcome to come and do some things like that. Right. So anyway, long story short, they were able to invite me to camp that year is 2009. So 2007, I'm at Carson Newman. 2008, sophomore year, I'm rehabbing my torn ACL. And finally, 2009, I'm at the school that became my dream school, the school that I wanted to be at since I was a freshman. Since I was in high school. And you have the book about it. I have a whole book written detail about it when it comes to how I transferred everything. It's all documented here, by the way. But let's get to this bad boy right here. Oh my God. I look at it and I hate to pick which one was the most rewarding out of these three rings. You hate to pick one. You hate to, because I love them all. They're like my babies, I do. Just, I mean, it's been so long since I've seen him, and I'm going back now to when we got him and all the things that actually it took for me to be in this spot. If I had to pick one, is this one right here. It's right here, man. This one is special because it has the score. If you look at the score, well, put it right there. If you look at the score, 36-33 in 2009, I was there at that game. I mean, I'm at that game, and I wasn't eligible to play in any game. So I was basically have my coaching hat on. Coach Hatch, by the way, who's still there, what he would have me do, I'm gonna show you guys. What he would have me do during game days, during the home game days, is I'd be there with a clipboard, writing down the plays, right? Like this was my junior year of college, and this is what I was doing during game days. I'm practicing with the team. I'm on all the scout team stuff. I'm bumping heads, and I'm gaining confidence because I'm realizing, hey, I could have played if my grades were where they needed to be. Hey, and if I hit the weights a little more, listen, I could have easily played Division I football. So, for a while there, coming from the high school I came from, you have those kinds of standards. You start to say to yourself, hold up now. You can't be just watching the Urban Meyers and the Nick Sabans of the world walking across yard and not develop like, hold up, I could thump with these boys. Let's do this, right? So, I'm practicing at Stony Brook. I'm practicing with the school and all that. And that game where we officially became the game we earned this is when we beat a team named Liberty University. And this one was really significant because before we got to the Big South, Liberty was the kings of it. Right now, I believe Liberty is, I believe they're FBS now, if I'm not mistaken. You might have to fact check me on that. But for a while, they ran the Big South. Like Liberty literally ran the Big South. And the year before, I remember watching Stony Brook play against Liberty because, again, I was in Maryland. So Liberty's in Virginia, and the game was locally televised. And Liberty just spanked that ass. I mean, 30 to zap, 30 to nothing. Because I was watching that on TV, and I'm like, that's the school, because I wanted to go to Stony Brook, and I was watching Liberty beat some Stony Brook ass. So what happened was it was an up and down season, and we ended our season playing against Liberty. And even though we had the same record, Liberty, I believe, had the opportunity to win the Big South outright. But if we beat them that game, then we have to be the champions, we're basically the champions, because when it comes to a tiebreaker, because if we beat them now, we're tied with them with their record. And when you look at the tiebreaker situation, the first thing that they take is the head-to-head. What happened in the head-to-head? And if we beat them in the head-to-head, boom. So, but no one expected us to win this game. This was a team in Liberty that just beat us the year before, 30 to zap. All right. So when you look at this score right here, 36-33, me being a defensive guy, and I was, charting the plays, and basically be 100% honest with you now, we almost gave that game up on the defensive side. It had not been for Gush, who Gush has also been on the podcast. His episode is titled Helping High-Level Athletes. But Jordan, his dad's was the defensive coordinator, Coach Gush. He ended up scoring a huge play down the field. We win the game off the last second, and boom, we earned one of these. So, when it came to me, and when I got there, that was the first year I was at Stony Brook, and knowing where I was the year prior, having an ACL torn and rehabbing it, and really getting my academics right to get into the school, and then walk on there, and then having to go through this and not even be eligible for games. When I look at all the rings that I've earned and a lot of the things that I've been a part of during college, this one hits home. This one hits home because I wasn't really known. It was hard to establish a group of friends when you're coming in, and this is your second year of college. You don't have a group of, incoming freshmen that are being put through a process. You're not on scholarship or anything like that. It was one of those things where, and a lot of my teammates, the people that knew me back then, can validate this. But that night, man, let me tell you, grabbed a bottle of Bacardi, and I started just giving out motivational speeches to everyone. I was giving out motivational speeches. I drank way too much, but you know what happens when you drink, and a drunk mind speaks to sober heart, and to know that I was there thumping with these guys and playing, and we actually were able to earn a ring and earn and win that Big South. That one was really special. That was, to me, at that point, I really didn't have much more left in it. I didn't know it at the time, but I didn't have much more left in the tank as a player. It was such a rewarding day, because let me just give you an idea of what happened. That day, Good Counsel actually won the CAC championship for the first time in years. We would lose to the Mather for years. So we won earlier. I think it was like, no. So Stony Brook wins the Big South. And then I go on my phone, I check some social media stuff. And I realized that my high school, Good Counsel, goes and wins the first time the WCAC championship. We beat the Mather. There was so much going on. And, I had too much Bacardi in me, and I'm around football teammates. I'm around my guys. And you got to think too, I had come from a Division II program. So I know how much all of this can change in the matter of 1 year. So I was moved. And that was my third year of college. And I was like, man, this is a rewarding thing to be a part of for the rest of your life. So that was year number 3. When it comes to year four, final year of college, when I earned this one, all right, when I earned this one, you see it says back to back. Back to back champs. And there's a difference. So let me see if this one has it. So this one, does it have it? Oh wait, yeah, it does. So if you look at this one, right, you see that LB, linebacker. That stands for linebacker. That's on defense. And I remember I was actually telling Anthony this yesterday. He was a co-worker of mine. He's a teammate of mine at Carson Newman. So you look at the difference. The biggest difference. This one, let me show you again. Linebacker, which is on defense. This final one, you see what it says? Let me see. Fullback, which is on offense. That year, from my junior year to my senior year in college, it was like me getting a master's in football. It really was. They moved me from defense to offense. All right, they moved me from defense to offense, and I was learning things that I had. I mean, again, as someone who thought he knew a lot about football, I knew absolutely nothing. I knew absolutely nothing, because when they moved me from linebacker to fullback, I had an opportunity now to make the travel squad, which I did. I made the travel squad. I got in some games. I was able to get in some games after we blew them out, and finally pop my cherry, so to speak, and be in there because I'm eligible for the games now. I remember, shout out to Vinny Polo. Vinny Polo was at that point, he was the third string tailback, and I was basically the third string fullback. So whenever we would actually blow teams out, we blew a lot of teams out that year. It'd be me and Polo in there, that I formation, power I left, I'm boom, and you get Polo behind me. So it was funny, because every time we would blow teams out, everyone's like, you and Vinny should have the most special connection, because every time you two are gonna get in, and you're gonna get a little action in, do your thing. Now Vinny was from Long Island and all that, so it was cool, because I felt like I'm back, baby. It took me 4 years, but I'm back. I'm on the field. I'm doing what I got to do. I'm playing, baby. So, but anyway, when it comes to the day-to-day, all right, the day-to-day is all right, so for those of you, and I'll close you guys out soon. So the day-to-day for a college football player is you wake up, you have your breakfast, you go to class, and then you go to meetings. All right, you go to meetings, and then after meetings, you go practice, and then you do more meetings. Pretty much, it'll feel like you're doing meetings all day. All right, you're watching tons of film. You're watching tons of film with your position group, with your actual position coach and all that. So when they moved me from linebacker to fullback, now I'm watching film on the offensive side. Now, for years, I've been, in the film room studying and figuring out how I was going to make a great linebacker and what defense is all about. But when they moved me from defense to offense, now I'm looking at the offensive perspective and how offenses go about attacking defenses. What are the steps that they're taking? What is going to dictate the play calling? What kinds of players they're going to be needing? The playmakers, all sorts of things that made me so much more knowledgeable about the game, and it fed my it was like a drug. It was like a drug at that particular time, because I was realizing, man, there's so much more I can offer the game than just being a player. So that year, when it comes to this last ring that I got, that year was all about me figuring out how to transition transition into something other than playing, because at this point I was being incredibly, again, I'm a senior in college, I'm getting ready to graduate, and there was a young fullback coming up. He was in our tight ends room. His name was Tanner Nails. Tanner Nails, who's from Houston. And not only Tanner was a great tight end, but Tanner could also be the guy that could jump out at fullback. Then he could also be the wing back. There was so much flexibility when it came to Tanner and what he was about. Now, luckily, they were able to redshirt him my senior year, his freshman year. But I knew by the time his time came, it was going to be basically the 5 guys that they wanted to basically play was going to be Matt Fiala, Chris Fenelon, Brett RC, Dave Shookery, and I was the fifth guy. And I knew in my heart, because again, I'm smart enough to realize, okay, Tanner is going to be the guy that comes in because he's younger and he could do more than me. He would be the better option. And that's just me being a man with some intelligence, a man with some common sense. Realize, hey, you got to go with the younger guy. I was developing more as a coach than I was as a player at that time, because you're going to think I had seen the best of the best. High school coach, Bob Malloy, I mean, the best high school football coach in all of Maryland. I had the late Carl Torbush, had the late Ken Sparks. Got an opportunity to work in the working world my sophomore year, to see a lot of entrepreneurs and trainers and be in that manager and see exactly how business works. And then, then I got to Stony Brook, and I found myself more intrigued about evaluating talent and evaluating how players move and stuff like that. And that's what led me to I have to tell my story. I have to tell my story in a way that's going to inspire people to continue to go after their goals, number one, but also be very realistic about where the game is going to take you, what it's all about, and what college football can do for you. And that led me into the role in the things that I'm doing now. So that's what it's all about. And as I close you guys out, I challenge you, as you're watching college football this weekend and you're seeing all these guys. I mean, every single one of these players. I mean, Coach P used to say it all the time when I was at Stony Brook. Is he used to say, there's a lot of success stories in this room. There's a lot of success stories in this room that you would never, ever know about. So when you see the guys out there competing and, see books, the guys like me who have books and have tons of stories. In fact, I'll show you right now. So if you're not, and I have my NIL bundle right here. You got transferring D1, you got Make Your Move, you got the 6-figure athlete, who I did this book with a teammate of mine from Stony Brook. If you see that name, Taj Deshawn, shout out to Taj. All of this stuff connects. And when you think about, or when you're watching college football, when you're seeing everything that's going on, understand that when you are a part of something that you really love, you're part of something that you really love doing, it's more so about how you can use the positive things about it that's going to make it so you can apply it to later on in life and figure out how you navigate the right way to navigate certain things in your life that you can do when it gets tough to navigate. Because I remember actually Taj interviewing me for his podcast a couple of years back when he was regularly putting out his podcast and all that. And he asked me what was life like after Stony Brook. And I told him it was rough. It's always going to be rough. And I don't want it to ever stop being rough. But it's these times that I told you, these rings are just a representation of being able to handle tough moments and handle certain things that come up in the season. When you're part of a team and you're able to be around folks that are going to continue to push you and continue to push you and continue to push you. I mean, just in this particular live stream, I've talked about multiple teams. I haven't even scratched the surface of the amount of teammates that I could have talked about, but several of them have been on my podcast, been on the show. We've talked about it. We've walked each other through certain difficult times, and we still have these things right here about in terms of what we learned, what we were all about, what we can take away, and how we can how we can use all of these lessons, all those things that we had during the season, whether you were the guy that was playing every snap and was the main player, or you were the red shirt or guy that was injured like me and just on the team, or making it a travel wherever you were. If you were part of it, it's something special to be grabbed. So take that into consideration during this time in college football, man. It's a beautiful time, great time to be a college football fan. It's going to be some great matchups. I can't wait for it. I'm here for it all. I'll be here breaking down everything. Just, what I would be doing on my Saturday. So all that being said, main website to check out to dive deeper into all my work, it's makeyourmove.com. That's MakeYaMove.com. Also, don't forget, tap into the Patreon link, patreon.com/as144. That's where it's going to be exclusive content and exclusive content for the members of the community, for the business owners of the community that want to continue to get better. Everyone out there, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon. Want to continue to get better. Everyone out there, continue to move swiftly. We talk